Hi, my name is Jennifer. Welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're doing well. Today I am doing the book club book tag. So this is an original tag created by Melinda from A Web of Stories, and Melinda kindly tagged me in her original video. So I will link that video down below. I was very pleased to be tagged in this because I love my book club, so any excuse to talk about them. The first question is, are you in or have you ever been in a book club? Are you in more than one book club? So I am in a book club. I'm actually in two book clubs. I'm in a book club at my local library, and I've been in that group for 9 years now. The group itself has been going for at least 15 years, possibly closer to 20 years. And there are members who have been in the group for that length of time. I'm also in a book club at work, although we haven't met properly as a book club since I've joined. So I only joined this place of work earlier this year. We did meet for a book swap, which was good fun, sort of like a month ago, and I took 3 books in that all got snapped up, and I picked up 2 books. And we are going to be meeting as a book club in the next few weeks. I did used to be in another book club at the library actually. When I first tried to join the book club at the library, they told me there was no spaces in any of the book clubs, but they were setting up a new film book club. So I did join that for a few months, and that was where we read, each month we read a book and also watched the movie that the book was based on, which I think was quite a good idea for a book club. But when a space became available in one of the normal book clubs, I found that it was like too much to keep going to both, so I left that one. So question 2 is, what is your book club like? How many people are in it? How often do you meet? Does your club have a specific focus? So I'll talk here about my library book club. We meet once a month. We meet on a Saturday morning. We used to meet on a Monday evening, but then the library restricted their opening hours, so now we meet on a Saturday morning, which is quite nice actually. At the moment there's only 6 sort of core members. It goes up to around 10ish. I think that's sort of a good number for a book club. But people have come and gone over the years. I think all of the 6 members who go now, I think I'm like the newest one, and I joined 9 years ago. Everyone else has been going for longer than me. We are all women. We range in age from 41, which is me, up to, we have a couple of people who are in their 80s. We don't have a specific focus. We tend to read fiction rather than non-fiction. Our reading is restricted by the reading group sets that the library has. So I have mentioned this before in other videos, but the library has a long list of all the reading group sets that they have. And this is it, printed off. So it looks like there's a lot of books on this list. But bear in mind, the group's been going for as long as it has. We've read an awful lot of these books, and the library does add new sets to this list, but only maybe like 6 a year, so it's not that much. So we do sometimes struggle to find something that we all want to read. Really, the criteria that we use now is, have we read it before, and is it available? So we have to order our books online via the library website, and we're only allowed 3 sort of holds at any one time. So one of those will be the book that we have out that month and are currently reading, which means we can be in the queue for 2 other reading group sets. But if there is a queue for one of them, that means that we need to order a set for the following month, which we know is available to us, and that's in stock in the library, and another group hasn't got out on loan. So basically our criteria of late has literally been, one of us will sit there, go through this list, I'll be there on my phone, they'll call out a name, and I'll be like, yeah, no, there's a queue for that, no, there's a queue for that, that's available, we'll order that. And that's literally the criteria that we use. So our book club is fairly laid back. The first rule of book club is that it's okay to DNF the book. You know, we don't want it to feel like school. We don't want people to feel like they have to have read the book. Generally speaking, people will have given the book a go. occasionally life might get in the way, and for whatever reason someone might not even have had the chance to pick up the book. That doesn't happen that often, but when it does happen, people still really want to come to the group, and I know that all of us in the group really value our meetings, and even if the book's been a bit rubbish or whatever, we really value coming together to meet as a group once a month, which is really lovely. So as I say, people have coming on over the years. And I remember we had one person join us, actually not long after I started, like 9 years ago. But she wanted the group to be much more structured, and she wanted us all to make notes on the book. And she didn't last for very long because I think we were not the type of group that she wanted. And it's fine if you want to make notes on the book and bring them to the meeting, of course that's fine, but she really wanted us all to do things the way she thought a book club should be run, and we were, I think, quite resistant to that. So she made us all read Cloud Atlas. None of us made it to the end, and then she got off. So yeah, so there are different types of book clubs, and our book club is not going to be the book club for everybody, and we do laugh about that amongst ourselves. We are very laid back. I think we have to be, because of how we get our books, the fact we get our books from the library, and it's really difficult to get something that any of us want to read. Even if we can find something on a list that even one person is interested in reading, then that's a win, really. We could, of course, buy the books ourselves or source them elsewhere, and we haven't done that because I think we all appreciate the fact that we can get the books from the library for free, and it sort of puts an added pressure on if each member of the group is spending money on getting a book that they might not necessarily like. So we do talk about the books when we read them and or DNF them, and we'll talk about our reasons for DNFing. The conversation tends to start off talking about the book, and then often it will move out. So it might be that we talk about wider themes in the book. It might be that someone has personal experience of something, and it sort of comes out into a broader conversation about themes and topics. I think when you talk about books with other people, particularly when you talk about a book that you have all read, you inevitably share something of yourself with the other person, because of course half of your reading experience of a book is you, and the other half is the book. So of course you are bringing something different to that conversation. You are inevitably going to be sort of telling something of yourself. I think when you've been in a group for a long time, like I have, we all get to know each other's tastes, and so when I read a book, quite often I know who in the group is going to like it and who's not going to like it, and we'll often sort of recommend each other other books as well that we happen to have read, and we'll be like, oh, this might be your kind of thing, this might be your kind of thing. Generally for me, people will be like, this was kind of dark, this was a bit weird, you might like it, and usually, they've got that right. Question 3 is, what book generated the best book club discussion in your experience? So a couple spring to mind. One is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot, which is one of the few non-fictions that we read, and we read this several years ago. So this is about, if you're not aware, Henrietta Lacks was a woman whose cells were used by scientists against her knowledge, and they were used, and I believe continue to be used, in a whole variety of sort of scientific and medical areas, because there's some particular unusual properties that these cells have. So but Henrietta Lacks wasn't aware that this was happening, and sort of her family weren't aware, and it was only many years later that this was sort of discovered, and her family sort of continued to live in poverty whilst I think big sort of pharmaceutical companies were profiting off this. So anyway, that was a really interesting book because there was lots to discuss in there, lots of interesting things for the book club discussion. And then another one more recently that prompted a good discussion was Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. So this is a book that I think half of the group had already read previously. I was one of the ones who had already read this book myself years ago, and the other half of the group hadn't, but we chose it because we thought the ones who had read it had really enjoyed it and would like to reread it, and we thought it was a book that the group as a whole would possibly really like. and we did all really, really like it, and it prompted a good discussion. Sometimes when everyone is in agreement on a book, it doesn't always prompt the best discussion, but for this one, for Eleanor Oliphant, it did prompt a really interesting discussion, both in terms of the themes in the book and also in terms of sort of how the book is structured and how the author did different things in that book. So that prompted a really, really interesting conversation. Question 4 is, has your club read a book that was great to read but not great for conversation? So I struggle to sort of think of a particular answer for this, but I think, as I've mentioned, if a book, the best conversations are usually when there's some sort of differing of opinion. So, you know, people talk about why they really liked it, and then someone else will talk about why they really sort of disliked it. Sometimes if a book has just been fine and everyone's like, yeah, it's fine, that doesn't necessarily prompt the best conversations, particularly if there isn't any sort of interesting themes to draw out of the book. Question 5, is there a book you would like your book club to read and discuss? So yes, there is, and I'll give you some background just to put this into context. So a couple of years ago, the group read Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. I missed that meeting. I think it was my sister's wedding. I wouldn't miss book club for much, but for that, fair enough. So I had already read this book when it first came out. So I only heard about the book club conversation sort of the following month, and it turned out no one really got on with this book. I don't know if any of them finished it, and what they didn't like was the sort of lack of punctuation and how it's written sort of not quite in normal prose, not quite poetry, but that sort of mix of the two, sort of flowing sentences. None of them got on with this, so I thought that was a real shame. So the book that I thought that the group might like by Bernardine Evaristo is Mr. Loverman. So in contrast to Girl, Woman, Other, Mr. Loverman does use punctuation, which I think the group tends to appreciate. And it's a story, if you're not aware, of an older man who is married, has been married for many years, but for the past 60 years he's been in a secret relationship with his childhood friend, and he is gay. He's married to a woman. So I think my book club would like this because there is a humour throughout the book. I think the main character, Barrington, is a really, really interesting character. I think there's family drama in here that I think the group would appreciate, and I also think it would probably prompt some interesting conversations as well. So I think that would be a good one for a book club discussion. So yes, question 6, final question. If you could invite an author, dead or alive, to your book club to discuss their body of work, who would it be? So this is kind of a difficult question because I don't think we've read multiple books by any one author. But I do have an answer, and my answer is Lynda La Plante. So this month we're actually reading Prime Suspect. I only finished that this morning actually. But one of the members of our group knew Lynda La Plante when they were younger. Apparently Lynda La Plante grew up in Liverpool, and so I just feel like if she came to the group there'd be lots of interesting stories that we would get to hear as a result. So that is the end of the tag. I am going to tag a couple of people who I know, if they're not in book clubs now, they certainly have been recently. So I'm going to tag Bob the Bookerer and Nikki from Red Dot Reads. If I haven't tagged you and you would like to do this tag, please consider yourself tagged. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Bye.